be here. I'm John Bucks. Was there anybody who had me as a speaker in 2019, I believe? Yeah, okay. Good. I'm Dutch from origin, and I live in Romania since 2011. And in the beginning, I had a Romanian survival package. My Romanian survival package was no stew, no vla, no pots, and if that didn't work, I said, nothing can go wrong. Somebody in the back room said, nothing good either. Okay. Now I'm always just talking before to colleagues of mine here, speakers, like, how is your Romanian? Now I'm at 70% understanding it, maybe at 45-50% speaking it. And I say the 70% is dangerous to understand, because I can listen and I understand 70%. There might be something you're telling and I start laughing about it because I misunderstood, because it is 30%, it was not so funny. So yeah, that's always dangerous, so I stick to English here. I'm going to talk to you about positive psychology and specifically also how to apply it in a practical way. And what I would, yes. So this is what I hope to achieve with you, that you know and understand the concept of positive psychology, the benefits, its principles, some illustrative examples, and then we will also do some practical exercises. I would like to do one at the beginning. Just think of, from the moment that you got up this morning until now, one moment which was a nice moment. Could be small, could be bigger. Just think for a moment. Since you got up until now. Okay. Hands please, who has things in mind? I'm not going to ask you to separate them. You have it? Okay. Please discuss with your neighbor. If it is that you're 5, you can discuss with your back neighbor to make it even. Discuss and share it. What is that moment? Please share it. I'm so happy that's a good thing to happen. How does it feel to share this with each other? How does it feel, this short moment? I gave you only a minute, a little bit more. How is it?
Good and fun. Out of the comfort zone?
A bit out of the comfort zone, depends also on what was the nice experience. Yeah. Now, this is an example where I asked you to think back until now. And this is a part inside positive psychology which we call an energizing past. The past. So I let you think about the past experience, which was energizing. So this is one concept to bear in mind in my term, the energizing past. I have a question here. Please look at it. So why do we focus on improving weaknesses instead of cultivating strengths in general? Or why do we focus on failures and how to avoid or correct them instead of building on the success factors? Can somebody explain it?
We feel that the weakness is the missing pieces to a working team or a working mechanism. So we just try to fill in the pieces that are missing instead of...
Yeah, that's one. Any other reason?
Negativity bias. Negativity bias might be.
Yeah, negativity bias. Yeah.
Because this is how we are raised. Our mother tries to
Raised.
be perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to identify weaknesses.
Okay, I'll get to this.
Weaknesses and failures basically hurt us, and we want to avoid being hurt.
So it could be a better motivator.
Yeah, it motivates you better than to repeat success.
Okay. Few things which were said to relate to. We human beings want to fix things. We tend to want to fix things. That's what most of us have. And indeed, when something is hurting, because something goes wrong, there is a concrete drive, hey, I want to avoid this a second time. So all elements which I heard here, they play a role. And they're good. I'm not contesting them. I would like you to write down now for yourself, and we're not going to share it among friends, and we'll ask 1 or 2 or 3 persons to share it. Just go back to a compliment you got professionally speaking, which really meant something to you. Just think back, professionally speaking, of a compliment you got, and which really meant something to you. Write it down. Just to raise hands who already got to a compliment. I see some, yeah. For whom did it cost a little bit of issue, a problem, or problems is hard, but there's some effort to get to it. Okay. Is there anybody who would like to share it? It's not too private, the compliment you got.
First question, who's trying to improve the weakness?
Who's trying to improve the weakness?
Yes.
In what respect do you ask the question?
Well, usually it's opposite of what we wrote here. Usually people are trying to cultivate their strength.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, right. Allow me to get back to that. So, the point is of how come that if you would look back, that it takes some effort to find, hey, that was a compliment which I got, which was really meaningful to me.
To build on what Chikram is saying, we have a Romanian saying that says kind of self-praise doesn't smell good.
Yeah.
And it's culturally, we are not taught to talk good about yourself or to praise yourself.
Yeah, so this can be even a cultural issue. I'm sorry, I'm stereotyping, but the American one, oh, damn, I did a good job. Yeah. We in the Netherlands, we say, hey, John, act normal, that's crazy. Yeah, so there's a cultural part also which plays a role. Parents play also a role, how you've been raised, the school system you've been in also. And I don't know whether you had the experience, but I was a little bit above mediocre student and pupil, because I had one wish, I wanted to become a professional football player. Yeah. And when I came to the report, there were always a few insufficient marks. I was smart enough to make it enough to go to the next class. And when I got home, I knew what was happening. When my mother looked at it, she looked at the general, and if it looked good enough, she hugged me and said, good job. And I knew when I go to my father, he doesn't look at the pluses, he looked at, hey, how come? What's up there? What are you going to do about it? So, very often you will meet, or quite often you can meet these moments. Remarkable, who did ever a behavioral or personality test? Yeah? funny thing is that if you look at it, hey, I recognize myself. Yeah, obvious. You fill it out yourself. You don't know whether you filled out the answers what you wanted to be or what you really are, but that's another thing. So then the question is then, okay, what do you do with it? Did it get into the drawer, nothing was done with it? Are you read it? I recognize myself as there. Once people start doing something with it, then the question is, what do you look at? Do you look at the strengths and ask yourself, how can I bring them to the next level? How can I cultivate them? Or do I look at the weaknesses which I need to improve? And research has shown that by the vast majority we look at the things which we have to improve. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not disqualifying. But the proportion in which it is the issue. So, the founder of the principle that exists already since 1988. And it's the scientific study of what makes life worth living. And of positive human functioning and flourishing on multiple levels. Positive psychology was a reaction on the classic psychology, which is focused on curing mental diseases, as an example. It was a reaction. It's not a disqualification. So the classic psychology is already able to cure or treat and cure 15 different types of diseases. So it has its function. What positive psychology said is the following. Positive psychology, why would we only have psychology for the people who need to be repaired? Why wouldn't we also use psychology for the people who are not having any of those diseases? And there is some principles of positive psychology is one, be as concerned with strength as well as with weakness. And with success as well as with failure. I would change it, I'm an optimist by nature, so I would say to pay 60% to the positives. And I know it's sometimes dangerous to say it in an engineer world, but we'll get to that in a moment. Be as interested in building the best things in life as repairing the worst. Both are there, we cannot deny them. Yeah? Be as concerned with making the lives of normal people fulfilling and nurturing high talent and instead of healing or as well as healing pathology. So, and the slogan underneath is, you don't have to be ill to get better. What Martin Seligman uses, and this is the most comprised one, is he says there's 3 happy lives. There's the pleasant life, which is about fun, pleasure, and it's about positive emotions that you have, and they are functional. The more positive emotions you have, the better you will feel, but also it's contagious. It also has a positive influence on others. There's one a missing point in it, that pleasure parts, they tend to decrease the more you experience them. I went for the first time to an escape room and it was big fun, whatever, but if you go the 5th or the 10th time, it's not anymore that way. Yeah. But it is an important part of positive psychology. Then the good life means being engaged in the flow. So if you ever had the experience, you were working on something and you were so engaged and you were so into it that you just forgot about time. Time flew. Oh, sorry, so late. Yeah? And it gave you a good feeling what you did. He calls that the good life. And then the meaningful life is that people tend to feel happier, better when they feel that they have a contribution to something with a higher purpose. So these are the 3 things that he says, okay, have fun, that's part of it. Have those emotions, have those laughters with each other, these pleasure moments. He says also that the combination of the lower 2, engagement and purpose, if you want to lead, let's say, a fulfilling life, they are absolutely necessary. And last thing, to close it, there is a model now, if you Google it, PERMA model, if you want to know more of positive psychology, this is the latest model on it, which is already used in quite some companies, based on positive psychology, based on the philosophy of Martin Seligman. And to close it, it's not now an exercise, and you can ask questions, watching the time now also. As an exercise which you might do for yourself when you go home, when you have time, you think it out, is when did I do a project which was successful and I feel that I had a substantial contribution. So when was I part of a successful project and which I found that I had a really important contribution to reward yourself. Last thing, who knows already that we have the term feedback and feed forward now, that also feed forward is mentioned. Okay, I said the energizing past. There's also a de-energizing past. I'm not talking about technical problems, but any other problem where you talk too long about why it happened, who was the cause, the more and the longer you spend time on it, it de-energizes the majority of the group. That's the de-energizing past. You need to look back. You need to come to some conclusions. But the faster you can get to the future, what you can influence, because the past is history, the present is reality, and the future is the perspective. So it's an essential difference if your language completely changes in this way. So I'm in sales. So we all didn't reach the target of last year. I announced a meeting in which we want to discuss two ways. Let's discuss what went wrong and why we didn't reach the target. Or I invite you, guys, let's come together, let's discuss how we're going to make the target of next year. Which one would be more motivating? Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. You get the book,
Yeah.
And don't forget your notes. And I think we also have room for some questions.
Oh.
Going once, we have a question here or there.
How can you get buy-in from the team that you're working with for these positive psychology, let's say, ideas? Because a lot of times we see with like older teams, like with more older individuals, it's like, oh my God, he's coming again with these stupid ideas.
Well, I know that in the technical and financial area, sorry that I'm using some prejudices, that you will have this kind of resistance for sure. And also the other ones, but they're for sure. There are, and if you Google positive psychology, you will find some practical things. It's about the practical things you do. You yourself, if you want to influence your environment in a more positive way, you can look at small things and we forget about the small things. I have a saying, the obvious is often so obvious that we are not aware of it anymore. So, if you would only already write down as an exercise, how many, if you are with people, how many compliments did I give this week to people and how many times did I give critical feedback? Just like to make yourself aware, you know? We tend to take, and if you know this, and it's also for your kids, it's also in your personal relationship. If you know that compliments finally give people a good one. We don't even used to get the compliments because we downsize them. When you get a compliment, we tend to say, yeah, but I was lucky. Or yeah, but it was also because. Hardly ever says, yeah, I'm happy that you see it because I worked hard for it. So you can also do small things by, okay, I'm going to give more than I did before to look at what is good and also address it. So not using positive psychology as a concept to introduce it in your team, but the simple things you can do. A retrospective meeting. Do once a month around the good news before you start. Share around news. Good news. Around the good news. Not every time, but once in a while. Privately or professionally. And there's so many small things you can do which really influence the atmosphere. And that's about it. It's not what you can do, you can decide in a team, and I did it with some teams, at least with the leader of some teams, that, okay, let's introduce some principles of positive psychology. Yeah? And then, okay, we agree with each other on the principles, and how do we support each other? Any other questions?
We have one here
I have one.
from that.
So you are in Romania for some time now, so you know this. What do you think are the cultural challenges over here in order to adapt to a positive psychology?
First of all, I want to give, I love the country here, that I want to say. I don't want to go back to the Netherlands. There's a lot I enjoy here. My first experience when I was driving with Loredana on Moscow, and I said to her, how come that nobody is speaking here on the pavement to each other? And they almost all looked down, 2004. It's one thing which I noticed. What I also noticed is that the interactions with people in many contexts is that there's a lot of liveliness, people speaking, that's energy. Hardly in reflective dialogue, where people ask each other questions, perhaps without. These are things which I noticed, which if I come from the Dutch culture, which I find a disadvantage. There are quite some things which I like better here in the culture than that. We have also another issue to solve. We have the education system, which is in transformation or reformation, but it takes time. Yeah? And yeah, were raised by the parents who did the best they could in the country and in the circumstances they did. Yeah, and now we have you as a generation, and you can do it. Yeah, and it starts with those small things, but do it in your family life, do it in your team, do it towards your partner, and that's where the change starts. So yes, I do believe that it is a bigger challenge to do it here, because we Dutch went out, some small country in the world, we conquered things in the world. We once were the richest country in the world, and we did very bad things, by the way, to get there. You are a country, you were ran over. You had the Turks, the Greeks, whatever came over you. So it's a totally other background, yeah? But that is not an excuse for now, at this moment, take every small moment to pay attention. Yeah, this was a success, what can we learn from it? Where can we apply it? Who can learn from it more? Elaborate on success, elaborate on strengths. Give more compliments than criticism. Criticism must be given. Try to analyze and get to the course of things when things go wrong in the non-technical parts, very short, and focus on the future. What can we do in order to make it better?